Let's call to order the September 20 meeting of the Newcastle Environmental Review Board. We have present David Horowitz, Ivan Alter, Ted Holmes, myself, John Rosenblum, and Dennis Corelli, who's the town environmental coordinator. We don't have a formal agenda, but I guess the first thing we should do is review and approve the minutes from the meeting of June 21st, 2021. Anybody have any questions or comments on those minutes?
Nope.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve and adopt the minutes.
Move.
Second,
Second.
Ted seconding, all in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are adopted. Okay. And the one substantive matter to discuss tonight is an application from the Blatts at 17 Colony Road. Dennis, you want to take us through and describe the application a little bit before we hear from the applicant?
Sure. So, Ms. Blatt and I had met actually a few years ago, just discussion, consideration actually for a different potential project, which is why you have the survey with the delineation from DEC, as well as Mary Janig. Those lines as they appear are accurate and do depict the wetlands correctly. The only error on the survey is the 150-foot buffer, which in this part of town, it's actually 100 feet. So the 100 feet that's depicted from the DEC wetland would also be consistent with the town's Chapter 137 regulation, and the local wetland that's identified, that 150 actually would be 100. But I don't think it matters in terms of, I believe the project is within the buffer of one and or both wetlands, however you want to define that.
And what page, where's the delineation?
I included the letter delineation report from Pfizer Janning Environmental Consulting it was in the application.
So it's just this survey?
Well, there is a letter report. It was the second to last and third to last pages, I believe, in the application as I organized it. I think the final sheet of the application was a coverage calculations worksheet, so I had the delineation towards the end.
So the report is the second to last and third to last page, just before the coverage calculation?
Yes.
And where's the map along with that?
That is what was overlaid onto the survey. So these are Mary's flag points that were surveyed in. So that correlates to the delineation.
So the survey map that immediately precedes Mary Janning's report in your package?
Yes. Which also in the upper right-hand corner has the validation from, Josh Fisher of the DEC staff, as delineated by Mary on 9/18/19.
And I'm looking at something else because it looked to me like it says October.
That's the validity date of his
Right.
his
The core and
credentials.
typically they accept it for 5 years. Yes.
But yeah,
Okay,
Jonathan, it sounds like you've got the right document. It's the only visual. It's
Right.
the survey.
so now that we're there, where, you want to point out, Dennis, where are the boundaries on there?
I'm sorry, the boundaries of the wetland, you're saying?
Wetlands and the buffer, yeah.
Yeah, so the boundaries of the wetland, so if you're on the western segment edge of the property, those flag numbers ML-1 through ML-11, that's the line that was delineated. Obviously, the wetland is a much bigger system, but that's what appears on the property at the western end. And then it goes, off property to the south. And as I said, when I, met Ms. Blatt a couple of years ago, in that upper on the property, but we'll say the southeastern corner where it's designated as local wetland, there was another line that Mary had delineated, and I guess DEC for whatever reason, I don't think it necessarily hooks up, but they didn't include that in their designation for 041, but it is a wetland that, meets the criteria for Chapter 137 in the Town of Newcastle regulations. And those are the flags, WL 18, 28, 38. So I'm not sure of why the flag nomenclature appears as it does, but I've seen the property and I have walked it with this in hand and agreed with the lines that I saw at that time. Obviously, those flags are gone 2 years later.
Right.
So it looks to me as if about nearly half of the residence, the southern half of it, is in the buffer zone. Yeah. Is that what you're all seeing as well?
Yeah, I'm looking, so that, just to make sure I'm oriented correctly, so that kind of arc-like dotted line that comes down from the top and swings down and to the right towards, I guess, the south side of the property where it says 100-foot wetland setback line,
Mm-hmm.
setback that we should be looking at. And it looks like it comes right through at least, a third quarter of the house.
And then it bends, it looks like halfway through the house, it does a 90-degree turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, one question I have is, when I look at the plans, it shows that the patio is existing. So is all of the work being done on the existing footprint of the patio?
Just about.
Yep.
The only impervious surface that is going to be lost is
Impervious?
there is
Yes.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry. The only pervious surfaces, right. The majority of the project's being constructed over existing impervious. The pervious surfaces, thank you for the correction, that were going to be removed. And this was on a first edition when I reviewed it and then commented. There is just basically an existing planting bed between the two patios. So you see two areas that are labeled as patio on the survey, and there's almost like a rectangular notch in between. In essence, that bed contains some shrubs, and some of the patio edge towards the east, I guess, is going to encroach on some existing turf cover lawn. And I believe that was calculated to be about 90 square feet or so of removed permanent impact to pervious surface.
But does it go out beyond, say, if you take the horizontal or the north I guess it's almost a north-south line of the two patios.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guys see this? Is
Yes.
this, is what's in green considered the new?
What page is that, David?
101?
Hold on, I'm gonna pop this up in my screen.
I don't know if you can see my colored.
Yeah,
Yeah, except a lot of that, David, is being built over existing.
well, that's what I'm asking. That, I think David was showing it to us because it highlights that area between the two patios, right?
So I think
Correct.
this page, if you take a look, if you can see my screen.
What's the number on the bottom, Dave?
Oh,
Ivan?
there you go. Somebody's screen sharing. What a good idea.
Right,
What number? I don't see a page number, actually. 101 PL?
right. That's the one I'm
101.
told to facilitate the discussion. So this is what's existing. And basically, if you go, so there, you know, I'm sorry as my eyes aren't picking up this designation, but basically where you see, I think it says DN2R. If you go up screen and if you see my cursor, this is the area that basically is existing shrub planting bed, and there was another small square-shaped bed here that's just, you know, surrounded by all impervious, and this was just a little alleyway of planting bed, and in this area,
What's that about?
you know,
Was that about 3
beyond
feet wide?
Yeah, that's why, I mean, the calculation of approximately 90 square feet is mostly driven by the length, certainly not the width.
Uh-huh. And the two patios that are marked stone patios, are they all set in concrete or are they semi-permeable or are they completely impermeable?
From my walking on them, I would go impermeable.
Okay, so in your opinion, Dennis, the only new disturbance would be that area between the two patios that you just showed us?
Yes, yes.
And am I correct, Dennis, though, that at the very top of the stone patio to the right-hand side, it looks like there's 10 square feet of lawn covered by new steps?
Right, that is figured into the
So there's a
calculation.
tiny strip, Jonathan, just on top of that stone patio to the right. Looks like
Go to the next one.
maybe a foot wide, maybe.
Right.
Can you
Well,
roll
all
it down
those
to drawing
square feet-
101?
Okay,
You can see that on 101 PL.
Okay, that's going to be next. Hold on, get to the next sheet.
gotcha.
There you go.
Now, is there, which one is that? That's 101. If you go 2 more pages, it's actually highlighted for you. Makes it very easy to
sorry.
see.
Yeah, 101.
Sorry. Trying to be green, double-sided didn't help. I agree. Oh.
There it is. So the hatched area is what's being built upon. That's new.
Right. So, right, 80 plus 10, that's where I came up with the 90. My,
So Dennis, now that if they're making changes to the impervious area, are they picking up the downspouts somehow from the new roof?
I would say they're going to have to. That really wasn't discussed at length, but that's going to have to be part of the, that's addressed in permit conditions and obviously in the building permit as well.
Okay.
We haven't. It's not not shown on any of the plans that we're looking at.
No, I know that there's there is existing drainage that's shown on, and I know I picked it up on, I think it's on the mitigation drawing that it appears the existing curtain drain of the property, but then an existing footing drains. I am not familiar with what the existing drainage system is for the house, but the presumption was that that's basically what this would tie into.
So is drawing 200 the only elevation we have? No, it looks like, yeah.
I'd
And
say
it's
yes.
And none of that is shown on this, right? Unless I'm missing something.
You're saying none of the stormwater capture?
Correct.
I would agree.
Okay, I would think that that's something we would typically want to see.
And then at this point, do you pick up the existing terrace areas too? Or just the new house piece?
I mean, I would have just focused on the new construction.
Well, wouldn't it depend on where the stormwater from the new construction is draining before you make that decision? I mean, if you've got downspouts just emptying onto the patio, don't you want to figure out how that's going to be handled?
Right. Well, I misunderstood. I was again just thinking of what's existing for the residential structure, and that was the system that I was thinking about. I wasn't anticipating anything being, discharged onto or across the patios.
I mean, it may not be, but we don't know because we haven't seen what the plans are.
Understood.
Okay, so add stormwater management detail.
I mean, I can tell you as a homeowner now, whatever the stormwater management system that we have is not effective because we're getting water in our basement. So this is actually part of the reason we're doing this is because there's a part between the two patios that actually seeps in, and even the previous owners have had multiple problems with that. So this is actually part of the reason that we're doing this.
So
in that case, you might want to consider putting some sort of drains in the patio itself, the existing patios, so that the water is, channeled away from the house.
Well, so it's not so much the patios that's the problem. I think it's the way that it's coming off the roof and then going down in between the patios. So I think that this new structure is gonna help. At least from what we've seen, because we've never had any water pooling on the actual patios. It's what's coming from the roof in between the two patios.
It may be that the patios, though, are pitched towards that center area where you're collecting water. So you may be, what David is suggesting, and it's probably worth looking at just to, so you don't have water problems, is you're going to need to do some kind of a stormwater management of the new construction, right? You're going to need to have the gutters and the downspouts going somewhere where they're not going to cause you problems. And at that time, you may want to look at also where the water goes that hits the patios, because it's an opportunity at that time to also pick that up and direct it to a place that it's not going to cause you problems.
Yeah, and I mean, we have an extensive French drainage system throughout the entire property that seems to be working. We just have this one very small spot that has been sort of this continuous issue. So, luckily, I think since we've been here 8 years, we've never had any water whatsoever. There's just this very small area between the two patios in the basement that is a reoccurring thing. But yes, it's something that we will be addressing as we hopefully can move forward. And amazingly enough, storm, we didn't get any water at all. So it must be somewhat effective.
Good to hear.
Yeah, it was great. We're very lucky.
Does your property generally drain toward the wetland?
Yeah, for sure. We've never really pooling in the middle of the yard. We've never had any issue like that at all. And the previous owners tried to put a pool in, which after looking, I'm sure, after at the wetlands, that was their first, attempt at trying to mitigate any issues that there would be. So they, I think, spent a lot of money trying, and also the system has proven to work really well.
Yeah, I'm sure your architects, when they develop more detailed plans, will be picking that up. But I think that should be submitted to Dennis
Yes.
just as once over with respect to the stormwater issues. Yeah.
So Dennis, were there any things that were of concern to you when you were surveying the area and the plans?
No, not specific to the project area. As Ms. Blatt stated, and being familiar with the property, and I guess it's also shown on, I guess to John's point, on 030, you sort of see, how the contours this shows 382 to 380. I mean, the property certainly is, pitched in that direction, and, goes gently down slope into there's a sharp wooded border there, sort of where the, manicured turf cover ends and the woods begin. And that, in essence, is, I'm sure, where a fair amount of surface hydrology from not just Ms. Blatt's property, but other properties, drain towards that wetland. So that was one of my suggestions after the initial review of the first submission was, you may want to focus on sort of that, what I call, lower elevation border area, which is, currently being maintained as turf cover. In some areas, it's, almost, it starts to thin out, almost looks like a, loosely like a top of a triangle notch. And I said, you would have great, mitigation opportunity there, because you would, link up with a red maple wetland and, provide, some replacement plantings that you're going to lose in planting bed. But, as a planting bed, adjacent the structure, it really doesn't serve any any purpose or value in terms of the wetlands buffer, but you could, I think, get value added benefits from moving, considering mitigation, away from the home proper, the footprint, the structure, and moving it towards the existing wetlands. So that was, my only comment, that they obviously in this second submission, which is what you're reviewing, had agreed with that recommendation.
And that new planting is what's shown in 030?
Yes.
And is that being offered by way of mitigation?
Yes, that's all currently lawn.
And what's your feeling about it?
No, I was, the square footage exceeded what they were impacting. They're putting in a lot of, woody plantings. Thought they were all good species. I think it's, if it works and develops, I think it'd be a nice little transition area that, you may even get to observe, some fauna that you maybe not had seen before, because I think it creates like this sort of almost like a unique aberration or occlusion within that, stark landscape of going from lawn to basically wooded. So I thought it was a good spot and good proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mary Janning's report lists some plants that are maintained in the uplands and then in the wetlands. Are those on the subject property, or are those adjacent to? Do you know?
Some of those plantings that I recall, I think they're further to the east. Sort of more associated with that local wetland as it's designated on the survey. It's funny you mentioned that, because that I think when probably I first met Miss Blatt at the property, I believe the lower New York State DEC 041 is pretty obvious, and all the red maple swamp characteristics that you see, that's really, that's what 041 is. And then when I ended up walking, I'll say through those plantings, not meaning that I stepped and tromped them, but, sort of through that line, that barrier, it's almost like to the back side of that, where I was like, oh, this is fairly, hydric as well. So that's why that local wetland got picked up. And I recall that area, and I believe that's, what Mary was speaking about, being reflected in her report.
The reason that I raise it is just because a bunch of invasives kind of jump off her report at me, and I wonder if there's an opportunity to clear some of those out. In the upland, she mentions honeysuckle, multiflora rose, and garlic mustard, and in the wetlands, Phragmites, jewelweed, and purple loosestrife. And I don't know how prevalent it is, or if it would even make a bit of difference. But as I'm reading the report and we're discussing, mitigation, that jumped out at me.
Right. Yeah, from visiting,
those seem to be in the wetlands themselves, right, Ivan?
Pardon?
Those seem to be in the wetlands themselves.
Mm-hmm.
right.
That's what I think I'm hearing from Dennis. Yeah.
Yeah. And I, again, I don't, I'm not denying their existence, but from my, recollection and being on the property, like, that's not what jumped out at me. I'm sure it's present, and she definitely tied a fair number of flags, so I'm sure she observed a fair amount, at this level. A lot of the delineation reports that are submitted, they're letter reports, and they're just, summarizing, this general areas. I really haven't seen anything formal ever submitted that, we used to do in my former life. And you would actually pick certain spots where you'd have to fill out these data sheets documenting vegetation, soils, and hydrology. And usually you would try to pick those spots based on, what characteristics, does the wetland have. So if it was an all Phragmites marsh, it was less data sheets on that day. You know what I'm saying? Because it just never changed. But in other systems where you noticed, either the dominant types of species would change or the cover type would change, it was a good time to stop and do a data sheet and, just document that. But again, from having, visited the property and what I recall, it's, again, red maples what struck me the most because there's, I think, a fair number of red maples, and that's kind of the swamp that I think of, which is a DEC classification for that type of swamp. To me, when you see the invasives or the non-wetland species, that in this case, some of them are invasive, like multiflora rose and honeysuckle, those almost, sometimes they're growing like they're within the landscape, but they're definitely perched on, almost like pockets that are of higher elevation because, when it's wetter, you tend to start to lose those. So again, I'm just speculating, but if I was doing this delineation and I needed to just start documenting what I saw, I could see why other species would be quote unquote listed in this fashion. But maybe if I wrote it, I would have wrote a qualifying statement as to what's dominant, and then also observed were, or something to that effect, to sort of help characterize that better.
Okay.
But
So, yeah,
I'm always a fan of turning lawn into something else, especially when you're like right there at the wetland edge.
And I mean, the areas that aren't impervious that are being lost are not functioning in any meaningful way, I imagine.
Right. Seems to me that it's largely ornamental plantings, right?
Yeah, I think they were boxwoods, if I recalled. So they're definitely, it's an upgrade in area in terms of location. It's an upgrade in area in terms of square footage, and I believe it's an upgrade in the species selection as well.
Good.
Were there any other or special concerns you had, Dennis, that you think we should be addressing?
Not specifically, no.
Okay. Anybody on the board? David, Ivan, Ted, any questions, concerns?
Not for me.
Nothing further for me, John.
So then, I think we've got decent consensus that this application makes sense. The one reservation or the one caveat would be to make sure, Dennis, that before, I don't know, you can figure out the timing, but either before or concurrent with issuance of the permit, if you have a chance to review revisions or more detailed plans that would show how they're planning on handling the stormwater, both the new flow off the new structure and how that's going to impact sheet flow or anything else that's on the patios, and convince yourself and convince Ms. Blatt that the way this is designed will actually help her problem in terms of getting rid of that, that water that's seeping in. That would be the only thing that I would think we should be looking out for.
I don't disagree, and since you phrase it that way, right? Because if it doesn't work, you would hate to have to redisturb. It's money, it's effort, it's disturbance. So I agree. This is a good all-in-one-shot opportunity to try to capture that.
Yeah, so have you, Dennis, do you know what the schedule is in terms of generating additional, more detailed plans and how quickly you might be able to see something like that?
You could ask the applicant. I'm generally available if anything is submitted to me. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Ms. Blatt, do you have any idea what the schedule is when you might be expecting more detailed drawings that,
Yeah, we just wanted to get through this phase, but it's something that I can address right away. And I mean, to my earlier point, I definitely I'm on the same page of wanting to mitigate that issue. And while it's small, it's something that actually bothers us a lot. So as soon as the architect is free, we will be working on it.
okay. And, you know, in that sense, Dennis will be able to provide you an extra set of eyes, you know, looking at it from our area of sensitivity to make sure that it's going to work for you and, you know, and for everybody else. So.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So, Dennis, do you think it's unreasonable to make the issuance of the permit dependent on your seeing those plans and signing off on them?
No, I think it is reasonable, and to be fair, I guess this was the first time I had heard that you had an issue, Ms. Blatt. So I think it would be worthwhile for everybody involved to include that. I was just, you know, focusing on your, you know, new proposed addition and, you know, some other elements, but I didn't realize you had as well, you know, it's nice to getting a new addition that if you're looking to mitigate or ameliorate a problem all at the same time, then you should, to your benefit and to a selected contractor's benefit, you're going to want to put that in now versus
Yeah, I have
wildcatting
no
it.
problem with that at all.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay, then I think it's time to entertain a motion to grant the application on the condition that prior to issuance of the permit, the additional more detailed architectural drawings that show how stormwater from the new extension will either handle the stormwater on its own, tied into the existing gutter system, et cetera, and be subject to the environmental coordinator's review and approval.
I'll make that motion, like you said.
I'll second it.
Ted, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're good. Thank you, Ms. Blatt.
Great. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, good luck with this.
Good
All
luck.
right. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for the agenda, Dennis?
That was it.
Okay. The only other bit of news that I'll share with everybody is that over the summer, we got in an application for a new potential member to join us.
Yay.
I've been actually trading phone calls with him, trying to put together a time to talk in a little detail and, you know, see whether it's something that he's really going to be interested in once he knows what we do, and whether
I
we
think when he realizes it's not as glamorous as it sounds.
right. He's not going to be able to, you know, render a comprehensive environmental finding and opinion on the entire form-based code, for instance. But no, he sounds like a decent guy. He just moved in from Ossining and has supposedly some related experience while he was in Ossining. So we'll see. and I'll report back after I talk to him, and maybe it might make sense for one or two of you guys to talk to him as well if you're interested. So that's that. But Dennis, on the question of meeting sites, would you flesh out a little bit about whether it's town policy that's now changed, or whether it's still up to us? Because for one, I mean, I love the convenience of doing these things from home, but I think sometimes it works a little, more than a little smoothly and efficiently if we're all gathered around a table, especially with an architect, somebody can, point us in the right direction of plans and things like that. So I, for one, would be anxious to get back to town hall as soon as we can. So.
Okay,
All right.
I will, I think we have a group meeting tomorrow. I will bring that up as to how this all came about with the planning board.
Good, perfect. All right. On that note, I'll entertain the motion to adjourn, I guess. David, you've been silent all night. You moving? You moving to adjourn? David?
I think he's frozen. Could you imagine? We're stuck here.
ERB purgatory. Motion made.
Okay. Ivan, you want to second this time?
Happy to.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody.